Of all scarce liquids, water is extremely rare. If the Earth was reduced to the size of one egg, all the water there is would be reduced to the size of a droplet, just enough to humidify the surface of the egg. That's all there is. We are alone around the sun. The Earth is the only planet of our solar system to be gifted with an appreciable quantity of water. Our water, our fragile blood is contaminated. No help will come from other planets. There is no other planet to retreat to in emergency. We have no choice but to engineer ourselves the survival of our children, however difficult, however painful the job may be. And we have but a very few years to perform such a Herculean task.
For years, my father and I have known the world's oceans as a home, a refuge of great beauty and wonder. On our global adventures, we have uncovered some of nature's treasures. Lamentably, we have also witnessed the steady deterioration of our most vital resource. Man's ventures in planetary exploration have given us a unique view of our water planet, our oasis in space. Tonight, we'll focus on examples of what's happening to our precious lifeblood, our oceans and rivers.
We know there's millions of gallons of untreated sewage a day that go out there.
And everywhere they went on the Hudson River, they found fish that was heavily contaminated with PCBs.
All of us might possibly be contaminated with cancer and don't even know it.
Just for life, we can't understand the approach that jobs are more important than the health of hundreds of thousands of people.
Life began in the ocean. The ocean represents the great giver of life, and it is also the great sink into which everything pours. It is absolutely essential that mankind treat the ocean with respect, because if we seriously damage the ocean, we will find it very difficult to survive.
Because a nation state at the moment has some coastline, that therefore it has some kind of natural right to the sea is nonsense.
It's very striking when you look at those photographs of the Earth that there are no national boundaries on them. And one country is simply not a different color from the other, its neighboring country. It's all one whole. It's one planet, one vast spaceship, and we are all in this together.
Most of the productivity of the oceans is in areas near shore. If you destroy the estuaries and you destroy the onshore areas, the fact that the open oceans may not be so badly polluted isn't going to make an awful lot of difference in terms of how much fish you can get out of them.
We are entering an entirely new field of understanding of the life cycle in the sea, which has accumulated riches, biological riches, but that has always been extremely fragile. And now that it is submitted to stress, it collapses.
Miles from New York City, on the tip of the continental shelf, lies a virtual Dead Sea. With our flying Calypso, we will survey a 20-square-mile body of water known as the Bight, a microcosm of the global water pollution problem. For the last 45 years, the human waste of 15 million residents of this metropolitan area have been dumped into a ravaged stretch of the Atlantic. To a population already beset with numerous urban strains, the city's wastes were out of sight and out of mind. I spoke with Charles Samowitz.
I cart away 175 dry tons of water waste each year. It's about 0.17 pounds of solids that the 8 million residents of New York City contribute.
But the product of the treated sewage, the sludge, is now displaced from the estuary to the bay.
That is correct. However, it is an innocuous fluid. We have extracted all the volatiles and the methane. We also use the methane gas for the treatment process itself to aid the digestion of sewage.
The only thing that's left in the sludge, I understand from scientists, are the toxic substances in the heavy metals.
No one knows, to my knowledge, what the consequences of discharge of these heavy metals are.
At the moment, as I see it, the agencies attempting to clean up our waters are just barely keeping pace with the increasing levels of contaminants that are descending on them. I don't think we're making much progress. I don't think it's feasible with the kind of population increase that could occur to expect that every acre of ocean is going to be pristine.
What it is a combination of oil, floatable materials that people probably have put down the toilet, and other material that's picked up in its voyage as it goes out to sea. Now, why it's up on the beaches is probably because of some peculiar meteorological conditions, and this debris, of course, comes from New Jersey and New York, and of course it adds to the debris coming out of Long Island, principally untreated sewage. Of course, we've never had anything with this scope, and we're frankly at a loss to understand why it happened. Why it tended to agglomerate this time and why it tended to show up on this whole length of Long Island, there's nothing that's surprising as far as what the item is. What's surprising is it came into shore.
The problems of the disposal of sludge from municipal sewage treatment plants, for example, Philadelphia or New York, we say that it's practically impossible to phase out this kind of dumping unless there are good alternatives. By setting the standards and the deadlines and telling a city like Philadelphia you must phase out over a given period of time, that puts the heat on the industry to develop the hardware, the technology to do the job, which wouldn't otherwise happen.
We are in a dumping area. Start dumping.
Number 1 tank open. Number 2 tank open. Number 3 tank open. Number 4 tank open. All tanks open, Captain.
We are under a mandate to discontinue ocean disposal by 1981. It is a difficult problem technically, but solvable. Whether it could be solved by 1981, I'm not sure. Whether it could be built by 1981, that I'm sure it can be.
While environmentalists and public officials debate the urgency of the problem, it is agreed that massive dumping into coastal waters cannot continue without disastrous consequences. By act of Congress, ocean disposal will be illegal in 1982. Alternatives must be found. Researchers on board this floating laboratory discover a variety of contaminating substances in the area. 50 years of continued ocean dumping has upset nature's delicate balance in these coastal waters. One solution is to recycle the sludge for fertilizer and reclaim its other components, but it is still at an early stage. No matter what technique is eventually found, it will stimulate employment and create new industry.
I think if we can make any headway in this area, impacted as it has been for much of this century, with the effluent of an increasing human population than is feasible anywhere in this country and probably anywhere in the world.
Nothing is produced that isn't eventually washed into the ocean. Now, mankind, when he disposes of his wastes, no matter where he puts them, he's putting them into the ocean. New York City is kind of on a perpetual brink of disaster, and more New Yorkers must concern themselves with how to keep it going. Well, at the present time, many New Yorkers can say, well, if things are just too bad, I can get out and go somewhere else. But when the entire earth will be as New York is today, and we can't get out, we will be forced to face our problems.
The troubled waters of New York cannot escape the watchful eye of an Earth Resources satellite. At NASA's Goddard Space Center, we are conducting a unique investigation. We are in communication with my father on board the Calypso in the Bahamas. Our aim is to determine whether satellites hundreds of miles above can measure variations in ocean depth. The scientific evaluation is overseen by Fabian Paulson. This experiment, we hope, will one day lead to monitoring the productivity and pollution of our fragile oceans.
Hello, Goddard Mobile here, Calypso speaking. How do you receive me, over?
Yes, Calypso, we copied, that's fine. So we have the message completely now, very readable. Thank you very much.
On-site depth readings made by members of our Calypso diving crew are compared to the satellite's findings. Our eyes in space focus on Calypso's precise location, transmitting what they see to NASA's Space Center near Washington, D.C. By using remote sensing, we are able to study our planet as a unified ecological system. NASA scientists are encouraged by the initial results of our experiment. The spacecraft's instruments show remarkable sensitivity to variations in depth and bottom features. As the Calypso team takes water and soil samples, we are reminded of perhaps the most important implication of our investigation, the potential monitoring of pollution in our global water system.
We're ready to transmit in about 10 seconds. 10 seconds. Are you ready to receive, over?
Like doctors keeping watch on the heartbeat of a fragile patient, remote sensing satellites could ring the Earth with their sensors tuned to the health of our oceans. We know they can alert us to the presence of oil slicks, contaminating sediment, and thermal pollution in our rivers, lakes, and oceans.
Get it all. All right. So,
Remote sensing has already produced dramatic results in crop production, timber growth, meteorology, and mining. With international cooperation, the satellite system could help us better manage our most fundamental resource, water.
already got. So you want to store the alarm in something.
So my point is that it would be a good guide for us, for our thinking here on the spot.
And because we have these real-time facilities, which is very thrilling to know that just by satellite we can communicate all the time and get the results as soon as they're done. Time is eliminated, you know.
In Washington and on the Calypso, there is excitement over the success of the experiment. As my father has said, it is not by mere chance that space exploration coincided with the birth of our environmental awareness. It has given us a unique view of our water planet, suspended in an arid universe. We are hopeful this technology can serve as a guardian of all life for those who will inherit our threatened oasis. If the oasis is to survive, its waters must remain pure. Wastes of burgeoning populations are not the only threat. Toxic industrial pollutants pose a danger whose magnitude is not yet known. We brought the Flying Calypso to the Hudson River to investigate. A hazardous class of chemical compounds named polychlorinated biphenyls, or PCBs, have been found in every major waterway in the United States. The greatest concentrations have been found here, in New York's Hudson River, where approximately 250 tons of PCBs have been dumped during the past quarter century. Both New York State and GE, one of the nation's major PCB users, have accepted full responsibility for the damage of the river. I spoke with General Electric's Lucas Hart Jr.
It's our feeling that we don't want to in any way violate the environment, and we have decided to spend $5 million to reduce our discharges from that amount down to 1 gram a day, which is a fraction of that. You know, 1 gram is not very much.
Well, 1 gram per day, instead of 30 pounds 2 years ago. And the progress has been made already.
Yes. And that's, bear in mind, that's as far as the technology can take us right now. And there have been no limitations imposed upon me in any way whatsoever as far as spending money to solve this problem.
Scientists and engineers and environmental organizations have gotten together and tried to come up with some figures on what it would cost to restore the Hudson, what it would cost to do the research, and estimates range from $20 to $40 million. This sets a very dangerous precedent. If they are found guilty on the Hudson River and they have to invest millions of dollars into restoration of the Hudson River, they're liable to do this in other parts of the country. So they don't like that. Investing millions of dollars and cutting into their profits to do this kind of research, that is not in their plans. That's not in their plans for economic growth of their industry.
Surely the leaders of General Electric or the industry do not want the people to be sick.
One would hope so.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. All right, you got 4 pounds. Butch, put it over there, right?
Well, for many, many years, in fact, going back 20 to 25 years, we used to get hundreds of tons of fish out of Hudson and Long Island area. Over the past 20 years, there's been quite a bit of pollution. Since that pollution, none of the New York wholesalers would handle any fish coming out of contaminated waters. As it stands now, there is no edible fish caught in the Hudson River. Consequently, the people here, the wholesalers, will not handle it under any circumstances.
We don't handle Hudson River striped bass. You'll find that the public has been in misapprehension. They hear Hudson River striped bass and they think that's all the market sells, and we don't even handle it. I wouldn't take a Hudson River striped bass here for no money in the world. You couldn't give it to me.
I spoke with Everett Knack, a fisherman who knew the Hudson's better days.
The striped bass that are hatched in the Hudson River annually are worth over $100 million. Now that's a good deal more than GE produces in those plants up there. If the plants are allowed to keep dumping, they're destroying an industry which is worth probably 2 or 3 times what their industry is worth. And yet some of the politicians think that that's not so. They think that the Hudson River isn't worth anything, but they're wrong. You've got a sleeping giant out there that can support 1,000 men easy. It's one of the biggest potentials, I think, that the state of New York has.
You want to pull it in more?
Everett Knack once fished edible shad and carp. Now he stocks goldfish ponds.
Well, see, they're nice, healthy fish.
Yeah.
There's no disease on them. There's no parasites on them. But they're a good food fish, but you can't take them either.
Other fishermen have also been forced out of business by the ban on Hudson River fish.
Well, I thought we had people that were supposed to be taking care of these things so they don't happen, you know. I quit a job that paid me $17,000 a year so I could go fishing. Now, it's just like starting all over again.
Where are you going?
I believe the Connecticut River, if we don't run into problems over there with pollution or anything like this.
Unfortunately now, a lot of people are ready to say, well, there's no further need for this river. Might just make a sewer out of it. But I think if they look ahead just a few years, they realize that we're going to need this river for drinking.
We rely on this river for domestic water use. And I think we have close to 100,000 people on the City of Poughkeepsie water system.
We asked the commissioner about that, and he said that they hadn't tested any of the people down there, so they didn't know how contaminated the people were. It seems real strange that the fish would be contaminated, and yet the people that drink it, they've just got to be.
Certain animals take PCBs into their tissues and concentrate them far beyond the background levels. My logical question would be, is this true of human beings? Can we also concentrate PCBs in certain of our tissues? The substance is known to be a carcinogen. It can cause cancer. There have been experiments using fairly low doses, and I think here's some of the most damning evidence, if you want to look at it that way, of deformed embryogenesis. In other words, it's teratogenic. It can cause birth defects.
When you discharge a pollutant into the river or into the air, that's a cost you're imposing on the town downstream, because it has to spend more money to clean up its drinking water. Or it is a cost which is transmitted to you and I who live around the plant in terms of respiratory problems and doctor's bills. Those costs are external costs. Without regulation, every incentive exists to push those costs away from the plant.
The PCB problem on the Hudson River, in a lot of ways, is a microcosm of environmental crisis for the whole country. We have on the Hudson River, in the PCB crisis, a failure of industry to control itself. We have a failure of bureaucracy to enforce the law. And probably we have a failure on the part of people to really watch the bureaucracy and watch the industry.
There's no way you can win the battle. PCBs have gotten such a notoriety in the media and so much emotionalism attached to them that we have concluded that we have to prepare to make a substitution. And it costs like almost $1 million to make fairly certain that a material is not going to be harmful to animals. To prove its effect on human beings is a long, long time process. So you're running somewhat of a risk with a new material. We're doing everything we can think of to minimize that risk.
It really is sort of tantamount to an experiment. It's an experiment in the sense that we are exposing people to the substance, and we know from much work in cancer that many cancers have a long latent period, 20 years, 30 years. And conceivably, in 20 or 30 years or longer, we will uncover the horrendous effects of this experiment. I don't think we can afford to wait 20 or 30 or 40 years to find out what the story will be. We need this river. We need this water. Without it, we can't live.
This river is not going to be cleaned up unless the 10 million people who live along it insist to the politicians that it's being cleaned up.
That's right.
When the people insist that it be cleaned up, then it will be.
Sailing up my dirty stream, still I love it, and I'll keep the dream that that someday, though maybe not this year, my Hudson River will once again run clear. She starts high in the mountains of the north.
The recent decision to halt dumping PCBs is an important environmental victory. With a seemingly endless stream of new substances constantly entering the environment, we must remain vigilant in protecting our troubled waters.
To warn of things to come. At Fort Edward, 1,000 honest hands work at the big General Electric plant. No one told them what PCB could do, not just to fishes, but to people, me and you. Down the valley, 1 million toilet chains. Find my Hudson so convenient place to drain. And each little city says, who, me? Do you think that sewage plants come free? Out in the ocean, they say the water's clear, but we live on the river here. Halfway between the mountains and the sea, tacking to and fro, this thought returns to me. Sailing up my dirty stream, still I love it and I'll dream that someday, though maybe not this year, my Hudson River and my country will run clear.